The greatest battle we face as human beings is the battle to protect our true selves from the self the world wants us to become. That is a quote from poet E.E. Cummings. In these current times, face coverings have become the new norm. But what about emotional masking? So often we disguise our insecurities rather than face them head on. And as we fear the exposure of the one true thing that humanizes us all, and that is our vulnerabilities. So join us today as we unmask and pick the brilliant minds of today's guests, Nicole and James Traylor of Upstate Special Needs Planning and Rochester, New York, singer-songwriter Patrick J.O.N. My name is Amanda Ashley, and this is Afternoon Cocktail, episode 46, Unmasked. Welcome. Patrick, what's up, my brother?
Oh, just had to unmute there. I'm doing good. What's up, Amanda?
Not much. I love your new album. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What are you going to perform for us? And who do you got with you?
Yeah, so I've got my bass player Jeff. The rest of the band couldn't make it to this, but they send their regards. So one thing, I think you got my name misspelled there, Amanda. J-O-U-E-N, but that's all right.
Yikes, sorry.
That's all right. It happens often. But we're going to do Hey You. So it's the first track off of our new concept album, Mask. Some people you just can't reach, I guess. Doesn't mean you should stop sticking out your hand, though. You know, sometimes I wonder, sometimes I just want to know 'cause I ain't. Well, I can't take it anymore. No. Wow. I said, are you coming around? No. Staring down at the ground, Lord knows. Well, just lift your head up. Come on in. Hey, you.
Great work, you guys. Beautiful. I love that track on the CD also. It came out really, really nice.
Oh, I appreciate
So, Patrick, how many pieces is your full band?
So normally we're a 5-piece. So we've got keyboards, bass, drums, guitar, and then usually we have a backup female singer too, Susan. We've just brought on a new drummer recently too, because our other drummer kind of got trapped in Toronto. Matt, so during all this, so he can't cross the border or anything, and decided to kind of stay there. So, yeah, normally a 5-piece.
Nice, very nice. How did the show at Love and Cup go? You guys just performed there like a week ago, was it?
Yeah, it was good. We actually had a pretty good turnout. I wasn't expecting a lot just because of what's going on, but it was all outdoors and everyone was kind of spaced out. It was a beautiful day out, so we actually had a pretty good turnout for that. It was hot though.
Yeah.
Like you're in like this little tent thing out there, and there was no fans or anything, but well, there were fans. I get it. Play on words.
Aha.
A musician dad joke.
I like it. I like it. Dad jokes for days. Patrick, tell me, can you give us a little bit about your background? So you're actually from Brooklyn. Am I getting that wrong, or was it the Bronx?
No, Queens.
Queens. Yep. Okay.
So yeah, born and raised in Queens, and then ended up moving up here 15 years ago, I think, give or take, 15, 16 years ago. And I love it here. There's plenty of space here, and the cost of living is much less expensive.
Sure is. I know, I'm from downstate too.
Yeah.
It's kind of what brought me here.
Maybe we talked about that in the past. Where are you from?
I'm a Long Island girl. Too many of these and you'll know it, trust me.
Says a lot, Amanda. Now I know exactly where you're coming from.
So, I mean, why did you make the like, what brought you to Rochester, though? Like, did you know somebody here, or?
Yeah. So my now ex-wife was down. She had moved down to New York City, and when we met, we think we came up to visit her parents or something, her mom, and we just started looking at what apartments cost here versus there, and I was like, yeah, we're moving upstate. So we ended up moving up here, and haven't looked back since, really.
Yeah, Rochester's a great community. I'm very happy living here, and have enjoyed my stay.
I find though, like some people that have grown up here don't kind of see the amazing side of it that I see, you know, coming from outside. You guys got like there's a great music community here. There's all sorts of awesome like restaurants and cool spots to. Can I curse on this, or am I not allowed to curse, by the way?
We try to keep it PG-13, but
I won't
if you
curse,
feel.
So, I'm trying my hardest not to curse. I do it a lot. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Rochester is just amazing for like the art scene here is unbelievable. So.
Yeah, I agree totally, and yeah, it's that small community, local support is really pretty amazing, and that's one of the things like throughout this whole ordeal that kind of tugs at my heartstrings, because you see so many small businesses really affected by this, and you know, as a musician, you know, you wonder how many of them are going to be able to pull through and survive, you know, and obviously we all hope for the best. So
yeah, it's definitely tough. Like the small businesses around here, especially the small little restaurants. I mean, a lot of those places are, you know, just floating, you know, to begin with, and then this just really puts a hurt on them. So.
Well, you've had your hands in small business for a while now, haven't you?
I have, yeah. So I owned a bar here in town, and then just sold it back in November. And I say kind of thankfully, because you know, dealing with this pandemic.
Oh yeah.
a nightmare. You know, I'm sure the new owners that purchased it from me are not thankful, but I'm kind of thankful that I sold it when I did. So, but yeah, I understand kind of where they're coming from too. You know, you're living on such small margins with the restaurant business to begin with, and just all the restrictions. And here in New York, at least, things they just keep on changing, like what they're allowed to do with regards to even music. You've been playing out, right? So.
It makes your head spin though. Like honestly, like every time I show up to a gig, I've been fortunate to play, you know, a good amount this past month, but
Yeah,
that's
you're a
only because I'm
machine.
playing solo. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, every gig I show up to, like, you know, somebody's got their hands in the air because like some new regulation was slapped on like that morning of, you know, and you know, everybody's just running around like chickens without a head, and we're just trying to like make the most of it. It's what it feels like a lot of the times.
Yeah, we'll
But
get through it. I think
yeah, oh yeah.
the nature of entrepreneurs and musicians and the type of people that are creatives, I think, work around whatever, you know, whatever's
Yeah.
there. I mean, you started pretty much going hardcore with this show, right? When all this started happening. So,
Yeah, I
I
did
know.
because I was like, I got to do friggin' something because I'm gonna lose my mind if I
Yeah,
don't. So
it's kind of like that. What's that Jurassic Park quote where he's like, life finds a way or whatever. You know
it
that
does.
chaos theory. I think that's how artists and entrepreneurs are too.
Brilliant quotes from
Like
brilliant
dinosaurs,
movies.
like dinosaurs.
Yes, straight from the T-Rex mouth. So tell me a little bit about your latest album. So your album is titled Mask.
Yep.
You are quite the poet, Patrick. I love
Oh,
it.
thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that actually it's funny because I decided to release it this year, and we had actually finished up all the tracks for it before all of this really started hitting the fan. In I think January we finished recording on all the tracks, but I had originally wrote it for the Rochester Fringe Festival maybe 4 years ago, and put it on as just like a solo performance. But when I did it, there was kind of a really good reaction to it when I did it. And for those that are maybe watching that don't know what the album is, it's a combination of like storytelling and original music all set in this imaginary world of people that are basically wearing masks. It's kind of a love story of a guy finding a girl in a bar. She's wearing a mask, but it's clear. And throughout the story, asks her to take off the mask so that he can fall in love with her without, you know, the mask on. And there's a kind of a twist ending to it. It doesn't end like a typical love story you would think would end. But I wrote it 4 years ago, and then I've been wanting to put it into an album for that long, and I started recording it maybe 3 years ago or 3.5 years ago, and putting down guitar tracks and all the spoken word stuff. And it took 3 years to finish the album, and I keep comparing it to that Guns N' Roses album, Chinese Democracy, where it took like 12 years to come out with it. But like there was so much stuff that was happening in my life during the last 3 years that I haven't had the ability or time to finish it. And finally this year, when we got the band, this current iteration of the band together, like the players were just amazing and added to what the album ultimately became. I'm glad it's out, and the title of it really has nothing to do with what's going on now, but in a way it does. It definitely has something to do with your topic or your show here. It's kind of the
Well, it's all interpretation, right? You know, it's funny. I released my single back in February. It was called Home, and I
yeah.
was just like, the next thing you know, like we're all like forced in our homes, and I'm like, well, I guess that was a good appropriate time. You know,
Did you
life
write
has
that?
its timing. You know,
Did you write
it had
that like?
nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing at all to do with like anything that just happened. You know, but whatever. You know, somebody might interpret it however they want. You know, that's the amazing thing about music. And whether it takes you 5 years, if it takes you 10 years, you just put out a volume of work that it means something to you. You know, how many people could really say that they've done that? Even
Yeah.
if you release one album in your life, one book, one something, you know, like you took the time to create something that's going to outlive you, you
Yeah.
know, it's pretty, that's amazing. So I hope you're proud. I mean, I know you're proud of that. You should
Yeah.
be.
I am, and every musician has that thing too, where they put out, they put out their song or album or whatever it is, and for the next like 6 months after it's released, you're like, I hate everything about this, and I want to change this, I want to change that, and then finally, like a year later, you're like, oh, that was actually a pretty good song I wrote or album I wrote. So I'm still in that phase where I'm like, oh, we could have done this little thing, but eventually you have to release it, right? You can't just keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking.
Right. Well, I love that you're not afraid to take any risk. I mean, it seems like you're always immersed in something creative. I mean, you told me, so now you have your own podcast. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
I do, yeah. So I started that too a few years back, and I listen to podcasts. I don't listen to mostly talk radio. I don't listen to a lot of music on the radio just because, like most people, you plug your phone in or whatever. And I started listening to a lot of podcasts where they were just interviewing interesting people. And I was like, there's so many interesting people here. I mean, being in business and in music, you just meet individuals and you're like, you're so interesting. I want to basically interview you. To find out what you're about psychologically and your story, your life story. But that's kind of hard to do if you're just like out for a drink with someone or you like interrogate them there.
Everybody will think you're like a weirdo.
Right. But I'm super interested in people. Like that's kind of like why the storytelling is a big part of my music, is because I write about the stories of people and I like to dissect what their thing is. I find it really interesting and people really fascinating and beautiful. So the way I could get around not looking like a weirdo and asking people a whole bunch of questions and kind of get deeper into their psychology was by doing that. So I started just having guests on that I knew, like just people from the business world and musician friends that I know, kind of like what you're doing here, and diving into like what their backstory is. So we do an hour to 2 hours, depending on how the conversation goes. We usually have a drink during it, and then I talk about in the beginning of the podcast what the drink is we're having. And it starts out generally, we're talking about their projects, what they're doing as entrepreneurs, as musicians, whatever project they have going on. And then ultimately it ends up in some chasm of existential conversation by the end of it where it's so deep and everyone leaves like, wow, how did it get to that point, in the end of it. So it's called Infiltrate Radio, and we used to have it on terrestrial radio, and then we'd break after a half an hour, and I'd actually have music in it. But then I just liked the free format of doing a podcast so much that it turned into like, screw the terrestrial radio. I'm just going to have the podcast be the thing. So, and you're going to be on.
I know. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be
next
really
Monday,
fun.
I think.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah, next Monday. Yeah. So tune in. Where could they tune in?
So Infiltrate Radio Podcast is on Apple, Google Play, any podcast place, iHeart. What other ones are there? Stitcher, all those things. Just search Infiltrate Radio Podcast.
Nice. So Patrick, I got to ask you. So like you said, like the whole concept story behind your album was about a mask, and you said you tied a little love to it, where she has to remove her mask in order for him to feel like he could love her. What does masking mean to you? Like emotional masking, like when you take away like the actual physical mask that we're putting on at the moment, like what does it mean to you to emotionally be masked?
Yeah, I think all of us kind of do it in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's actually healthy, I think, to do that, and sometimes it's not. I think you want to know that you're wearing a mask if you're wearing a mask, right? Because then at least you're aware of the fact that it's there, and you can make the judgment as to whether or not you want to remove it in certain situations. But it was meant as almost like a commentary on my own dysfunction, I guess. So the lead girl character, her name is Fame. And then the guy is just called Might. I don't know why I named him that. That's less significant than the Fame part. But it was a commentary like what I guess I do as a musician to some degree, and with other things that I do, where you're in the spotlight or you want to be on stage, and there's a lot of that going on now with social media where people want to be, they want to be accepted, or they want the world to see them like they want to be seen, right? And this continual chasing after that. The album is written kind of about the search for love and how that isn't necessarily always what you think it is when you're searching for it. And when you finally have it unmasked at the end of it, it may not be what what you wanted what you wanted truly. So I think that I struggle with not keeping that up myself. And that's, I guess, due to just insecurities and things like that. You know, I'm a little defensive as people grow older. I think they do that naturally. They just been through a bunch of, I'm trying not to curse, a bunch of stuff. and then end up, you know, putting up walls or putting up things. And that song, like Hey You, you know, kind of speaks to that too, where, you know, I try my best not to become jaded through all of it, and still take off my mask every once in a while, even though it might be frightening to do that, you know?
Sure. I think we all have so many layers to who we are, you know, and it's like as soon as you start embracing a little bit or becoming a little bit more comfortable with you know, you're able to remove some of those masks and not fear the acceptance part of it so much. It's I mean, that's at least what I get for when I was like thinking about this topic today and like what I could say, you know, like that's acceptance keeps like ringing in my ear like this like little annoying fly,
Yeah.
you know, but
I think that,
yeah.
I think that, just throwing, especially as a musician, I think the best work that people put out are the things that they're so scared to do. When you take that big, you know, risky thing that in your head you've got this vision, at least I do when I put like Mask is kind of it was a risky way to put out an album, and it's a risky show. I want to put it on in like a theater atmosphere too, and it's scary to kind of think about it because if no one gets it or it's you know, you look stupid or whatever. But the older I get, I find that the more chances I take like that, where I could potentially look like a fool, the further I get and the happier I am, you know, because for the most part, if you put effort into it, you end up succeeding more than you do fail, and people are more accepted of you just being you, however foolish that may be or silly you may be.
I agree 100%. I mean, that's why I am sitting here with you right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, are people gonna think I'm trying to be Oprah or what? No, I'm
Yeah.
not. You know, this is something I want to do, and I feel the same way about hosting the podcast. Like, I was like a natural born stoner. Like, I should have like been, you know, even without lifting an ounce of weed. You know,
Yeah.
like I think I just always had these like deep thoughts. You know, like where I wanted to ask people all these questions, and I like always had to hold myself back. And my friends growing up were like, Amanda, you're so weird, you know? But that's it, you know, and I'm still that way to this day.
Yeah, I think sometimes you tell yourself too before you do a project or before you go on stage or something like, and this is me saying this to myself, like who the hell do you think you are getting on stage or hosting a podcast or being in charge of this project at work, or who do you think you are, you know, like starting a business or you know, like the gall of you. Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that I've become better at overcoming that or ignoring it, and doing it anyway. And it's amazing what you can do when you start to just say, I'm going to do this thing that I may not be qualified for, or you know, people
Hey,
may
whatever,
say-
you give it a shot, right? Like,
Right,
what do you
right.
have to lose? That's really what it boils down to. Yeah, I say a big whatever to like
Yeah.
whatever people think. I stopped caring like once I
it's
turned
hard
30.
to do that
So
though, you know. It is
yeah,
difficult to do that, but
definitely.
yeah.
Hey, so where can our audience find your music and more out about you?
Yep. So patrickjoanne.com, or just Google the Patrick Joanne Band. We're on iTunes, you know, Spotify, all that stuff. You can download all of our music. Stay tuned. The Fringe Festival, we're putting on a show. This is going live, right? So we can talk about the show next Sunday. We're going to be at the Whiskey River Grill. I guess we're not supposed to advertise it, so we might bring our instruments to go eat, and then if we just start happening to play at around what time, 6 o'clock, you know, we'll be, you know, you might catch us perhaps incidentally playing music at that time at that place. But for the Fringe Festival, we're going to be putting on a virtual version of Mask, and I'm trying to implore some ballet dancers, and I've got some other theatrical stuff that's going to be a part of it. So if I can make that all happen by then, we're going to try and do it at the Lyric Theater. Fingers crossed. I've got the producer who's trying to get that going. So that'll be a fun one.
Sounds awesome. I can't wait to like follow up on that. Like I want to hear more about that as that comes along.
Did you update my last name there?
Oh, Beau did.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowyer Productions on it. I love it.
Professional over here.
See, it's magic.
But yeah, because my last name is hard to spell, and I'm pointing at my computer, but Google Patrick Joanne and all that stuff will come up. So
nice. All right. Well, Patrick.
Arrest warrants too, probably.
Good work. So we'll hear more from Patrick towards the end of our program. Before I bring my next guest, shout out to our show sponsors. If you guys are in need of accepting credit card payments, make sure you see the charge card guys at Electronic Merchant Systems. Big thank you to Compeer Rochester for all you do for our community and for being you and supporting our show. Thank you. Order your pizza from Salvatore's this week and in the weeks to come. And that's all I got. Nicole and James, welcome.
Hey, thanks very much for having us, Amanda.
Thanks so much. It's good to see you guys. It's been a while. Everything good? How's that beautiful baby boy?
He's good, trying to run a business from home with a 1.5-year-old trying to injure himself every day is it's a full-time.
That's hard. Yeah, I believe it. I know it's hard for everybody. That's like the hardest part, I think, for most people right now. You know, like as accepting as it is to be doing things virtually and have, you know, like having your kids run around, it's just still like your mind is like, ah.
I think it's hard because you can't ever do everything well, right? You can't be a good parent and a good professional at the exact same time. So something's got to give.
You guys are doing just fine, I'm sure. So, well, tell us a little bit about, can you tell us about your business? Tell us about you and what led you to your journey.
Sure, so I'll start. So we have Upstate Special Needs Planning and Upstate Special Needs Consulting. So our business is focused on working with families that have a family member with some type of disability. That could be an intellectual disability, it could be a mental health need, it could be a brain injury or a physical disability, but that's the common denominator. And we help them either on all of the financial planning around their unique needs or in maximizing every benefit that they can get and to transition into a successful independent life in the community. So it's kind of a niche business. And all of us have kind of different reasons how we found this way. So I have a sibling with a disability, and that's how I found this path.
Yeah, and as you know, James and I are married, so I want to say it was like 6 years ago now, almost, on a hot summer night over a glass of wine, because that's where all good business decisions come from.
Clearly,
let's go into business together. Like, yeah, let's do that. So. Yeah, you know, and James and I were both at our previous firms together, and I always knew I wanted to do some sort of work that had a mission to it, you know, that definitely tapped into a larger purpose. And I definitely found that, you know, with Upstate and what we've created. And yeah, and my own personal reasons for getting into, you know, this side of the business. My father is physically disabled and has some pretty significant mental health issues. And so again, being able to tie in what I do every day and have that personal connection, I think just makes it that much more fulfilling.
Now, you two, so with your mission, is it partially you're helping disabled people transition into like the next phase of their lives, like what's going to happen for like the next 5-10 years and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think a good example would be, you know, when someone has a child, they have this idea of what that child is going to be. And, you know, when you have a child that's either born with a disability or acquires one early on, you really pivot quite a bit. So there's various times in their life where they need a lot of guidance, and it's at key moments of transition. So it could be right after a diagnosis. It could be the exiting from the school system where you have all these structure and supports, and now poof, you're quote unquote an adult. Well, what does that mean if I can't necessarily live independently or maintain full-time employment? And what if I'm dependent on my family for everything? What happens when my family's no longer there to support me, whether it's circumstances or just old age? And so we get in there and we try to figure these things out as best we can as consultants and advisors. I'm not giving someone a bath every day, right? But I can help them figure out services and ways to maybe provide that need.
Very nice. So you're basically like organizing services for them when they come across that bridge, kind of more or less. Am I
I would
understanding right?
say, yeah, I would say, an area where we really shine is, again, what James alluded to, where somebody has been in the school system, they turn either 18 or 21 and they're exiting, and mom and dad are, maybe planning their own next, steps in life. And that could be retirement, maybe staying or moving or what have you. And again, if that person has significant needs, or even if they don't have significant, physical needs, getting that person a job, getting them, into a program, or getting them just to and from, and being able to do the basic, activities of daily living are things that we have to logistically figure out and financially be able to afford. So, those are ways that we really help families kind of over the finish line. And I would say we kind of are an intersection between the nonprofit and the for-profit world in that way.
Gotcha. Now, do you do this just the two of you, or do you actually have like a whole team of employees that you work with?
Yeah, so we have a staff of 6. We have people
Okay.
that specialize in figuring out Social Security work. We have a certified financial planner that helps with figuring out trusts and the dollars that are used to support someone. We have back office people, and then Nicole and I are more interfacing directly with families. So no, it's certainly not just the two of us.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But what decision do families most commonly struggle with regarding their disabled loved ones?
I think it's kind of a spectrum, depending on the age of the individual. But I'd say the largest areas where they struggle would be around independent housing. And I think sometimes we take it for granted just moving out, getting our first apartment. But if you struggle with just basic needs, what does that transition look like? The other area where I think they really struggle is in real relationships and sexuality. If you have a disability, do you know what it means to be in a healthy relationship? Are you a consenting adult? With my sister, she's always said, well, I want to have a baby. Well, but she can't even tie her shoes. What would happen logistically if she had a child? These are very, very difficult things to navigate. And families, I'd say, really, really struggle with that.
Now, James, is your sister younger or older than you?
So she's almost 13 years younger than me. So she was the little surprise of the family. And she's currently finishing up a life skills transition program and hopefully getting a bachelor's degree, which then means she's right in the thick of independent living and work and, what comes next. And she doesn't drive. So figuring out logistics is a full-time job.
How does that honestly make you feel? Do you feel like nervous for her, or are you excited to see her? I mean, I'm sure there's a part of you that's like very excited and proud to see her make the steps that she's made, or do
Yeah.
you find yourself in that more like advisor, like, are you advising her? Like, here's what we could do?
You had to ask about my family. I think the hardest thing is, I have a relationship with my parents as their son and my relationship with my sister as her brother. But I also do this professionally. And I'd say I struggle with my own family because, my parents are divorced. They don't always get on the same page about what direction my sister wants to go. My mom tends to disable her and do everything for her, where my dad pushes her more. And my sister's become an excellent manipulator in getting her way. I think the special education system teaches kids how to get other people to do stuff for them sometimes, and that disables them further. So, how do I feel about it? It's a combination of I'm scared,
Yeah.
She's a very vulnerable person. Her whole life is now online, and there's a lot of really dangerous things that can happen if you don't have the same social checks and some of the same the intellectual capacity to discern, is this someone who genuinely has an interest in me, or is this someone who wants to maybe take advantage of my situation? And that's terrifying.
Sure, I could imagine that would leave you like feeling a bit uneasy, you know. I mean, what if like there's a family position, let's say I have a sister, you know, that is disabled and she's taken a lot of the steps that you were just mentioning. You know, she's about to enter like her own adulthood and, you know, trying to find her way through life, but maybe she's really stubborn and wants to have that baby and wants to do all these things. How do you sway them into a more logical position? Do you feel like that's possible?
I think maybe we'll both take this question. I think, there's some real challenges there, right? Because people with disabilities are citizens too, right? They are, one of the great things about this country, and I know there's a lot of political discourse right now, but all of us have the same civil liberties. And that means that all of us can make really crappy decisions. And, where it gets really complicated is if someone doesn't have intellectual capacity, so they have an IQ that's so low that the state says you're almost in the role of a child forever, then it gets really confusing because someone needs to be their legal guardian and help them make those decisions. So I think the challenge for an individual is, what are the things that they want? Do they have the support network to make that happen? And are they going to have the resources to make it happen? Anyone would know in this economy, in this circumstance, it takes a lot of money just to exist. And if you struggle with employment because of maybe a disability, that really makes life challenging. You want to add to that at all, Nicole?
Well, I'll just totally put my mom hat on. Obviously, the thought of Natalie having a baby gives me an incredible amount of anxiety. But I think, when we're talking about how do you help people make, healthy, informed decisions that are going to set them up for success, I would think if Natalie were to come to me, with that sort of thing, or if your sister were to come to you with that sort of idea, I think it's about, well, why is that important to you? Why are you gravitating towards that idea? And being able to meet people, regardless of whether or not they have special needs, meeting them where they are and trying to really understand what they need. And, a lot of times it might be, we can put that on as a goal, but maybe it's not a right now thing. Maybe it's 5 years from now and we've got to work up to that point. I never want to, kind of like what you and Patrick are saying, I never would want to sway somebody from living out their truth and what they want to do or be. But I think it's about being realistic and also setting goals and, being honest with the person, right? I think people with special needs, a lot of people are like, well, they can't handle it. It's like, well, I know a lot of neurotypical people who probably can't handle the truth most times. So, whether they have special needs or not, I think it's about having candid conversations.
Sure. I'm asking all these questions to bring on awareness too, because this is something that I don't really know a whole lot about. I do have a second cousin with Down syndrome that I haven't met yet, and I want to be able to coexist better with my cousin and understand like his situation, you know what I mean, who's dealing with a child with Down syndrome. I have autism, a little bit in my family too, and here's like situations that like unless you're exposed to it, especially I worry about this more with Remington, my son. Like how do I teach my son to respond appropriately to these children, right, that are different than him, without him and have him get a general understanding of, these kids are different, or they're not gonna emotionally, they don't understand things the way you do. Like I don't know. I always wonder about when they become adults themselves, like, like how are, if their mother's not around, how are they gonna be able to get by, and that support that you guys were just talking about. Not everybody has that support. So where do they go?
Sure. So I think there's a couple things in that question or statement. I think the best thing you can teach your son is that someone with a disability they may physically look a little different, they may not process information the same, but you owe it to them to treat them just like anyone else. And I don't mean that just with lip service, but that means if they do something bad, they need to be told that's not the right behavior. If they, if they're doing something inappropriate, yes, you can redirect. Maybe you're not approaching the situation the same, but we do them a disservice when we treat them any different, because disability is just part of the human condition. It's been here forever. It doesn't mean something's wrong with someone. It's intellectual disabilities, about 2%. Physical disability, mental health, and when you lump that in, it's about 1 in 7 families. So think of your whole network. It's far more prevalent than you think. And so when you think of how do they support themselves, it's a combination of family support, what we refer to as natural supports, people that have a vested interest because they're blood, community and social capital, so neighbors, friends, extended relationships, and then systems. So whether it's school or the robust non-for-profit systems that we have here in New York, or potentially government supports that exist to support our most vulnerable citizens. These aren't people that necessarily choose to live on a system, but they may not be able to exist without that level of support. It wasn't a choice. And we owe it to them, not to make it. I think that there's sometimes a misnomer that we spend so much money on people with disabilities. If you're a person with a disability, you may get $870 a month in income. That's it. So I would challenge anyone to live on $870 a month.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, I can imagine. You guys, thank you for being so candid and open about this and for giving me your time. I mean, my last question, what awareness would you like to bring to our community and beyond?
I think people don't understand what it's like to have a family member with a disability. And to give you some perspective, there was a study that was done in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disabilities that mothers caring for a child with autism have the same stress hormone, cortisol, as active duty combat soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's that powerful. And I think when people maybe at Wegmans and they see a child misbehaving and they just run in to yell or say, control that kid, they may not have realized that it could have taken an hour just to get that kid dressed today. And so I think just extending a little bit more empathy would go a long way, not just for this population, but for everyone. But walking a day in the shoes of a family that's going through, providing support with a family member with disability is just, it's hard. It really is.
I think too, thinking about the theme of, your show today, right? And vulnerabilities and having very real fear if you do have a child with special needs. I think it's about a lot of times, at least when I'm speaking to families, most people just want to be heard. Like, I know that seems maybe obvious or kind of simple, but I think being a good advocate means sometimes just listening and being open-minded enough to learn and realize maybe I don't know everything, or maybe I'm making a lot of assumptions about this person and their situation. I mean, a lot of the families we talk to are going through some pretty heavy stuff. And I feel privileged every day to obviously be there and to be a support, and again, to validate and hear them. I'm sure you could agree now more than ever, if we all probably were to pause a little bit more and try to hear someone, the world would probably be a little bit of a better place.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing, and that's definitely became more apparent like once COVID hit, because now here we are, we're all in a position, and I'll say this in the end with my closing statement, but everybody has their vulnerabilities, everybody has their weaknesses, if we all just step beside ourselves for a moment and just realize that we're all human beings, we're tied to this race because we all at the end and at the core of it function the same. We have emotions that we're feeling, and we're experiencing different things, which makes us different as people, but we're all human. So if we just take a moment to remember that and to nurture each other a little bit more and to listen, like you just said, there would be a lot less fighting, a lot less tension in our world in general, you know? It's crazy. Well, you guys, where could our audience be directed to your services and find out more about you?
Sure. So I think the easiest place is we have a landing page for our two companies, and it's just upstate, as in upstate New York, specialneeds.com. So upstatespecialneeds.com.
You're awesome. Thank you for doing all that you do. And I hope I get to see you guys again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much,
Thanks.
Amanda.
Thank you. Patrick, rock us out one more.
All right, we just got to
Patrick.
figure out how to unmute. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So we're gonna do one more song. So we're working on a new album. This song is called "Just for the Hell of It," and it's a little more rock and roll, but it's about kind of keep on going, just for the hell of it. So here we go. Days they come, days they go. The moon it comes as the sun it goes. And this long and dirty road is all I know. The drinks come way too fast, you're on Denby Road. I said, ooh, I'll keep on keeping for the hell of it. All right. I've got no home, but I don't know why. The only thing I know is someday I'm gonna die. Ain't got no reason to be satisfied, no. The road is long as it is wide. I said, ooh, I'll keep on keeping for the hell of them. All right. If the answer to the question is in the mix, well, then there ain't no hope and no crucifix, no. The devil lies with his bag of tricks, just so tired of their damn bull. I said, ooh, I'll keep on keeping for the hell of it. Huh. Truth I found is hidden in a drink. The kings and queens should kneel to it. Well, heaven is a place that was built on it. So just drink the wine for the hell of it. I said, ooh, wow. Keep on keeping for the hell of it. All right. Keep on keeping for the hell of it.
Good work, boys. That was the music of Patrick Joen. Make sure you give his Facebook page a like, and also Upstate Special Needs Planning a like on Facebook, and check out both their websites as well. So today, before the show, I was outside and I was just trying to think about what I wanted to say right now. And I came across this thought, and it was this. If we exposed every quirk and how we truly saw ourselves, would it honestly make for a better world? Think about that. It's such a wild thing to think about, because to some degree, we all have a mask that we're hiding behind. I mean, maybe the truth is you're feeling overwhelmed as a parent, or you're stressed about finances, or arguing with your partner, uncertain about your job, feel like something's missing, are overworked and underpaid, are missing someone, your heart could be broken, something important maybe had been taken away, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sure, nobody wants to broadcast all of that, right? You don't want to walk around and be like, yeah, my heart is broken and I hate life, right? The point is, we all feel and are carrying some feeling of wanting or needing more of something. We're all feeling. This is what makes us one with our human race. The better we understand ourselves over time is a product of having exfoliated the dead skin of your past. Our vulnerabilities were designed to challenge our emotional strength and resilience. So get a little more real with yourselves each day and follow your gut feeling, whether or not it all feels right. Your gut's always telling you that. Does this feel right? And if you know it's not, that's where you know you have to change something. Take off that mask, and how could you make that situation a little bit better? Allow yourself to feel and not mask your emotion, because that emotion may be the one raw thing that connects you to those people around you, to those people you work with, to those people you love. The true test of humanity and to how we treat one another is understanding each other beyond our differences. Accept yourself, listen more to those signs and those gut feelings. Allow the authentic you to shine through as you shed each mask and begin to create that future that you truly deserve. Thank you so much again to today's guest. Thank you to Beau Productions for always being on top of it. And shout out to James Farley of Northwestern Mutual, to Maiden Voyage Studios in Fairport. Thanks again to Compeer Rochester, Salvatore's Pizzeria, and Electronic Merchant Systems. This Friday, we have a brand new show, so make sure you join us back here at 1 p.m. Afternoon Cocktail Show. We will see you then. Peace out.